Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you, Lauren. And I'm going to seek another gratuitous round of applause for Lauren and all the work she's done to put this event together. Again, my name is Eric Van Meltberg. I am our Xrpl Strategic Initiative Senior Vice President. And I've been at the company for about 6 years now. And it was about 4.5 years we kind of came up with this idea of the University Blockchain Research Initiative. And just to watch it grow and to see events like this happen is incredibly gratifying. I thank all of you for being here and all of your teams for making this program such a success. It's really quite something. And excited this morning to have Thomas and Scott here with me. As Lauren suggested, they are part of something called the Xrpl Foundation. And our goal in the next 25 minutes or so is to learn a little bit more about what that is and how that might actually intersect with all the good work you're doing as part of UBRI. And the good news is, kind of stealing our own thunder, I think there's a lot of intersections, so it should be a good conversation. So again, Scott, Thomas, thank you so much for joining. Before we get into the foundation, maybe I'll ask you each to introduce yourselves, a little bit about your background and how you came to be working with the foundation. So Thomas,
yeah.
Start with you.
So actually my background is in graphic design. I've been running a graphic design company for about 15 years, mainly working with typography, so completely different from blockchain. But I've also been very interested in how you can visualize data. And what better data to visualize than connected data and graphs. So that's basically my main entrance to the blockchain world was how can you visualize this connected data, transaction data that blockchain basically is. It's a huge publicly available data set, so a lot of data to play around with. And from there, not only working with visualizing the data, but also how you can actually use this connected data to do all sorts of analytics and stuff like that. Yeah.
Fantastic. Scott?
I come from a pretty long and meandering background, I guess, to get here. My PhD is actually in mental health, counselor education, and supervision. I'm a licensed mental health provider in the United States, as a matter of fact. I ended up here because my wife and I started a business providing online training materials for mental health professionals. And as part of that, I started running servers, and I found out that I really, really, really enjoy running servers. So I started a hosting company, which I have now. We do bespoke kind of integrations, really very kind of like technically complex things that people aren't going to be able to solve using a generic hosting provider. And started running infrastructure on the Xrp Ledger 2015, 2016. I was probably one of the first, it would have been the second or third independent validator on the Xrp Ledger. A fun fact too, I'm also the only validator on the Xrp Ledger that's caught fire, so we've burned down once. Hopefully that doesn't happen again. Data centers don't burn down often, but we had an incident in France, and there we go. So I'm running quite a bit of infrastructure on the network right now at this point in time, and then I've been with the foundation as a advisor of social and educational outreach since January, actually. So thank you for having us, Eric and Xrpl. It's been wonderful so far. Yeah.
Hopefully we'll have no fires over the next day or so. So great to have background on both of you. Let's start just by kind of level setting and providing a little background on the Xrp Ledger Foundation itself. Maybe just with how long has it been around? Some of the basics about its structure and whatnot. Scott, I'll let you guys decide. All right. Feel free to.
Well, the Xrp Ledger.
Stage.
Yeah, we'll just start a bit lower. So with the Xrp Ledger is this open permissionless blockchain, and I think it's often been referred to as the Xrpl blockchain, and that's a bit unfortunate because it's an open source permissionless blockchain that everybody can contribute on and build upon and use any way they like. So that's also part of why the Xrp Ledger Foundation was established in 2020. So this idea of fostering the open source community and fostering open source contribution to the source code. So it's not just a Xrpl blockchain, but it's an open blockchain that everybody can contribute on. So that's a bit why the foundation was established in 2020. It's structured, it's headquartered in Tallinn in Estonia, and management board, two-thirds of the management board is based in Estonia. And then we have advisors all over the world. We have Scott from the US, Michigan, US. I'm based in Denmark. We have legal advisor in India. We have advisors in Africa. So we're pretty much all over the world. Yeah.
Maybe speak a little bit, Scott, to sort of the mission, the charter, the objective. So what's the core focus of the foundation?
Well, I mean, really, as a nonprofit, you know, our biggest overarching mission is just the social good aspect, right? What can we do to leverage the Xrp Ledger for social good? Within that, really, our foundational priority is, of course, keeping the Xrp Ledger online, providing infrastructure so that folks like you can query transaction history. You know, it can be quite expensive to store, 24 terabytes of data. It's a bit prohibitive for a lot of folks, especially on enterprise systems. So we provide a lot of that kind of access, a lot of transaction querying, all that kind of stuff. Within that, we have a lot of specific submissions, kind of a lot of different verticals that we're trying to pursue that I think we can get into probably more here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, maybe let's talk a little bit more about areas of focus in some of these missions. I mean, just to give everybody a more tangible sense of what are the types of things that are top of mind for the foundation right now? What's taking up your energy, your time, your focus as you kind of move through the balance of this year and looking into 2023?
All right. Yeah. So first off, I think we should talk about reliable access to the Xrp Ledger. So the foundation is running a public cluster of nodes that is called xrplcluster.com. So almost everybody who's interacting with the Xrp Ledger in some way is probably connected through that cluster of nodes. And that has scaled a lot because there is a lot of more, in the last year, a lot of traffic. The traffic has increased on the Xrp Ledger and the demand of connecting to it has increased. So I think I think in a year, in a normal week, in a regular week, the cluster has about 80 million connections, and on average, 8,000 or 9,000 simultaneous connections. So it's a lot of data, and it's So reliable access to the Xrp Ledger is one focus area, and then we also have a focus area we call the token assessment framework. So there is a lot of interest both from financial institutions, but also from individuals and smaller companies or entities who want to issue tokens on the ledger, but they might not grasp the complexities of the regulatory landscapes and in different jurisdictions. So we have initiated what we call the token assessment framework, where token issuers can do a self-assessment, basically stating who they are, what their purpose is, are they a registered company, have they researched what requirements they have to fulfill and stuff like that, and then making that information public so potential investors can watch this information. So the first phase of that is already live, and during the next year we'll go live with a verification phase to that. So a third-party auditing firm will in a conversational way, work with the individual issuers to verify the self-assessment, somehow giving them a stamp of approval that the foundation has assessed this token, and we advise industry partners, exchanges, to somehow adopt this token as well.
Building on that, there's several other legal and educational outreach directions that we're going. So we're working to develop a micro degree on blockchain law specifically, and that's with one of our advisors that he mentioned out of India, Napanai. And she's going to work with some of our university partners to put that together. Anytime we're looking at degrees or trainings too, we try to stay within the European credit transfer system, if that's relevant, so that there's that transferability, I guess. We're also looking at putting together, we're in the process, more than looking at, we're actually doing, we're putting together a blockchain training initiative in India, which of course, I'm sure many of you know, there's a ton of developers in India, right? So there's a need, we're hearing from companies in India to have developers that have knowledge about the blockchain, and in particular about the Xrp Ledger. So we're gonna have opportunities for them to attend that, but we're also going to provide scholarships and opportunities. It could be UBRI partners or other folks from the broader, what we could call Xrp Ledger ecosystem to be able to attend that. And we've looked at similar initiatives in other locations as well, so that's something we're going to continue pursuing. Yeah.
That's great. And I mean, just in terms of communities and how they get information about the XRPL and the foundation itself, I mean, you guys also help to facilitate just information sharing. I mean, at a basic level, you have the domain xrpl.org. Maybe talk a little bit about that and what you're trying to do with that and how that kind of helps to broaden, just education understanding of what the Ledger and the foundation are all about.
Yeah. So the xrpl.org is a public available documentation of the Ledger. Everything you need to know about the Ledger and how it works is available from xrpl.org, but it also hosts explorers, so you can watch transactional data and a lot of other things. And it's actually being revised as we speak, also in collaboration with technical writers from Xrpl, who's assisting in doing this. But we want to also facilitate, especially open source contribution to documentation. So what can we do to drive more? Yeah, the documentation is open source as well and hosted on the Xrp Ledger Foundation GitHub repository, so everybody can contribute, but how can we drive more people to do that?
Yeah, just because something's there, we're realizing there's tangible challenges in terms of actually recruiting talent, recruiting developers, and getting people engaged enough to really contribute to the documentation. And I would add on to that too, Thomas has been doing a lot trying to get people to contribute more to the actual Xrpl, the code base that the network runs on as well.
Yeah, for sure. Are there things, I mean, on that, I think that's kind of always a challenge, is, to get the flywheel moving. Are there things that the foundation has experienced that, kind of positive test cases, things that are repeatable, or just kind of hints as to what works and what have you seen success with in terms of building that engagement?
To that effect, actually, we consistently, I will add, take a program evaluation standpoint with all of our degree programs, things of that nature. It's really a recursive process of taking feedback and then re-implementing that as well. As far as actually engaging developers and the broader community, I think one of the best ways I've seen to make that happen is kind of events like this, getting people actually together in person, talking about ideas, having a bunch of academics, graduate students and so forth, right? People get excited, they get really interested. There's a certain kind of energy that comes with these sorts of events, Beyond that too, just finding other people's motivations. There's a reason, people have reasons, they have meaning in life, kind of existentially speaking, and the Xrp Ledger can actually, it ends up scratching an itch, oddly, for some people, whether it's folks who are more concerned about their carbon footprint, or have other kind of like social needs. There's a lot. Xrpl does a ton of stuff, for social good. The foundation is also very focused on social good, and I think people are inspired and engaged by that.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think it's also to lower the threshold. So Xrpl, the core is a low-level C library, and you don't see C and C++ developers hanging on trees, easy to plug. So how can we lower the threshold of contributing to something like that? And one of the initiatives we made to do this was to introduce XLS, or the Xrp Ledger Standards, which is also a public repository on GitHub, where everybody, without necessarily having the knowledge or the capabilities to implement new features, can open a new idea for a new feature or a new amendment. And through this standard program, we have seen something like the NFT, native NFT implementation, XLS 20, and now the AMM, XLS 30. But there is also discussions on doing metadata standards for NFTs. There are discussions around hooks, native smart contract functionality on the Xrp Ledger, and a lot of other stuff. So that's a way to ease the entry to contribute for developers and non-developers alike.
And there's a need with that too, right? When somebody proposes like a new amendment or a new feature, take the automated market making feature. It's not just developers that need to weigh in on that, right? people that have economic backgrounds, business backgrounds, more diverse backgrounds, can really contribute very strongly to that conversation, So it can be a little challenging having everything on Git, which is a website for developers, tracking version history of software and so forth is the primary purpose. But the more that we can engage people in those conversations, it's really beneficial. So I do invite everybody here, to check out that repository if you have the opportunity, and please do contribute to those conversations. It can be a little intimidating sometimes. Every time I go to post on there, I'm like, ooh, this is a very intelligent crowd, but I throw it out there anyway.
So this has been super helpful. I think now the group has a good understanding of the Xrp Ledger Foundation, the types of things you do. As Lauren mentioned in teeing this up, a big motivation for this conversation was there's a lot of interest from the UBRI participants to learn more about the foundation. You have literally a bit of a captive audience. We won't lock the doors yet, but you have a captive audience here of folks who I think are well suited to interact, support, and advance some of the things that you as the foundation are looking to do. Let's bring it a little bit more home, if you will. What are some things that, on your wish list of how this group, the UBRI group here and obviously around the world, can best interact with the foundation and I think, kind of help each other out in the process?
I will say around interacting with us, several of you message me periodically. I'm not terrific about responding. We're a very, very, very tiny team. We're trying to get resources to grow and expand. So I really want to encourage everyone, if you're emailing or messaging, it might take a minute for us to reply, but please keep those messages coming. The information that we get from, especially the academic community, it's just beyond useful. We really want to pursue those collaborations. I know several of you are faculty here, so you probably know what it's like to get behind on the email situation as well. But as far as how you all can engage, there's a lot of different opportunities. We really need more people running trusted infrastructure on the network, and that can be a real challenge for universities because of the commitment that it takes to run that, right? We've run into some issues in the past, where an IT department didn't work on Saturday or Sunday, and a very critical server that they were running happened to go down, of course, on a Saturday or Sunday. What other day would it go down on? If you all have access, for example, to IT departments, if you're within a school of engineering or computer science, if that's something that you all are interested in pursuing, it would be wonderful to have conversations about that. Several folks here have expressed, that you're doing research on the ledger, so you need historic data to be able to query transactions and so forth. So if you're interested in hosting infrastructure, the foundation can actually, it's like I said, 24 terabytes, a huge amount of data. So we can ship out hard drives to folks that have all that data. So you just have a copy of it and you just pop it right into your server there and off you go. Beyond that, there's a ton of opportunities for research collaborations. With the micro degree, for example, on law, we need legal professionals to give feedback on that. We really need people to help identify gaps within this curriculum that we can then fill. And like I said, we're very involved in the program evaluation kind of process there. And same thing with like the blockchain initiative, being able to get feedback from people on that training institute would be incredibly helpful. We're trying to target folks like me that need very basic information at a level of a 5-year-old kind of thing, starting with what is Web3 and then building up to more complex topics there, and then potentially even into development. So having people willing to test things, having people willing to run infrastructure, and then being willing to provide input on things is tremendously helpful. We also give out, scholarships to students. We give out research grants. When we give out grants and funding, we really hope to encourage cross-disciplinary collaboration. So if that's something that you're interested in, maybe you're from the legal department, you want to figure out what it's like to actually talk to a developer, and then we can help facilitate that kind of stuff. So there's tons and tons of opportunities. A lot of our focus, is really around the academic community because just the technical expertise, the research expertise, we really value that kind of empirical process. We've got a data scientist over here, basically.
Yeah.
Thompson, any other
No, I think you covered it pretty well. But there's a lot of opportunities for collaboration, and we're more than willing to help also with anything we can do for you, providing data and stuff like that. Yeah.
Are there topics, I know just judging by some of the past UBRI experience, as Xrpl has provided research topics that are of interest in general, there's been a great appetite amongst the UBRI community to jump on those, kind of connect the dots with somebody within a program. Are there similar topics that the foundation sort of has top of mind, or maybe not now, but just over time that come up where, hey, being able to tap into the skill set and the brain trust that is the UBRI Foundation could be of help?
Yeah, I think maybe you can talk a bit about the energy research that we're
Yeah, of course. So one of our highest priorities in terms of research collaborations right now, I'll back up a bit actually. Before the foundation even existed, myself and the chair of the board, Bharat, started looking at how can we start a nonprofit that provides access to water and energy for extremely rural communities, that are energy insecure, and involved in agricultural practices. So anyway, fast forward to now, we've got this foundation, and we're working with academics to develop different opportunities, to help energy insecure communities. And to be clear too, we want to do this in a way that's culturally sensitive. We don't see ourselves as just popping in there, dropping some solar panels off, and then leaving. We really want to work with communities, engage communities. So we're working with Taltech University in Estonia right now. And they're helping the first part of the project, they're developing a microinverter for solar panels that actually will be linked up to the Xrp Ledger, right? So you can have a situation where somebody says, I want to donate a solar panel, to this community, to this group, and then they put the money into an escrow on the Xrp Ledger, one of the many terrific features of the Xrp Ledger. And once the microinverter gets installed, right, solar panels are direct current, and you need to convert that to alternating current typically. So once a microinverter that does that task gets installed, and that's what this university is working on designing, is a microinverter that connects to the ledger, like I said. So once that gets installed, it tells the ledger, okay, there's actually a solar panel here. We can trust that it's generating electricity. They're going to build a nice dashboard and stuff so you can actually see how much electricity your solar panels generated. And you can have that real confidence that you're doing something positive, and then you can actually see in real time the impact of what you're doing, and kind of similar things with water. We're also looking at developing energy markets on the Xrp Ledger, with Taltech. How can not around carbon credits necessarily, but how can people, purchase energy that a supplier has already produced, that's potentially green energy, things of that nature. And then various other things. How do you decongest microgrids and, some other challenges that kind of come with that space.
Totally. There's so many different directions we can go, and I also want to be a little bit sensitive to time. I mean, I think the goal today was to make sure that the UBRI audience had a good kind of high-level sense of the foundation, who you are, what you do, and points of intersection. I think we've been able to accomplish it. I believe you're going to be hanging out and around lunch. There'll be a table where if people have specific questions or want to dive into a topic or an idea, Scott and Thomas are going to be available.
Absolutely.
I'm looking, I don't know if I see Lauren. I can't remember if we were going to take questions or not at the end, or if we even have time for that. Looking for some help in the back. Yep, we can. Any questions from the group for the foundation for Scott and Thomas?
What is the best way to get in touch with you guys?
Just wait for the mic so everybody else can hear.
What is the best or preferred way to get in touch with you guys for project collaboration?
Drop an email to Thomas at xrpl.org or to Scott at xrpl.org, and we can figure it out.
I brought business cards, but they've stayed in my hotel room every single day.
Business cards, that's something new and different.
Hey, my LinkedIn doesn't work half the time, so old school is good.
Hi, maybe another question. So currently the Xrpl D code base is still under the Xrpl.
No.
Oh, it's already moved, or?
It's moved. Yeah,
okay.
since June, it's been under the foundation Xrpl. Yeah.
Maybe provide a little background so everybody understands the question and the context.
Yeah, sure. So the Xrpl D code base is basically the reference implementation of the Xrp Ledger itself, the core code, and that has been, I think, it was initially developed by a group of brilliant people back into 2011, 2012, and then gifted to Xrpl Labs, and now Xrpl Labs made it open source at some point and hosted it on their GitHub repository. But since June this year, it was moved to the foundation, so kind of another step in decentralizing the ledger.
Okay, thank you. Maybe even another question, I'm not sure. So I've spent quite a lot of time going through all the documentation on the different websites, And although it's quite extensive, it is a bit like scattered through different pages and provides a lot of very detailed information on individual topics. Do you also have plans to maybe make some kind of like scenario-based deployment guides on how people can best deploy a certain kind of setup for particular targets that you need within the infrastructure?
So this is something that gets talked about periodically. There are technical limitations to people running infrastructure on the Xrp Ledger. It just requires knowledge of Linux, most likely. We've got a Windows implementation working, but I don't think it's publicly available yet. These servers are servers that are supposed to have very high uptime typically, so typically hosted in a data center or something of that nature. So there are these technical barriers to actually running infrastructure, right, that exist. Kind of regardless of like guides or tutorials. I've got a guide that I have on my personal website, how you set up a node, cluster them, and things like that. But within the foundation, we're looking at doing more educational videos and things like that, tutorials, to help people kind of get involved and start learning the process more.
I think also the revamp or the new version of the documentation that is under development and will be open sourced soon in kind of a beta is also much more use case based. So you enter the website with a use case. I want to issue a token. I want to mint NFTs. I want to do this or that, and then it'll kind of guide you through the correct documentation. So yeah, I hope that can help a little bit.
The answer was great. Thank you very much.
I think we have time for one more question.
Good morning. When I check your website, I saw a word fundraising. So I wonder whether or not you help startups to raise funds, like a VC, or I don't know.
I mean, as a nonprofit, we have to be careful about how we're engaging, with for-profit companies. Honestly, our funding is just a bit limited, but we can help to some extent in some cases, potentially with grants or other access to data or whatever it may be. But we're certainly not like an incubator or something of that nature. Although, I mean, we can be very helpful too. One of the ways I think we're most helpful to startups is if you've got a need, right? Chances are that we know someone that can fill that need. If you need to work with an exchange that can issue a stable coin, if you need to work with, whoever it is. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Thomas, Scott, thank you so much for joining today, and thanks for all the work that the Xrpl Foundation is doing. We appreciate it.
And thank you, Ripple, for having us out.